And hello there. My next guest is the president and co-founder of the Goldsmith Organization. That's a global consulting firm working with leaders in commerce, nonprofit, government, military, and education right across the board. He's also the founder of Project Moonhut, and also the project leader of the global social movement, Project Moonhut, the Age of Infinite. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on. He sits on many boards of companies ranging from fintech to healthcare, and he's here with us today. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome David Goldsmith.
Thank you very much, Etna. Great to be here.
I'm delighted to have you here, David. Now, when I look at the great work that you have done, like around the world, so you have a very different perspective. You've worked with many people in different countries. So perhaps if you take a bird's eye view, what do you think are the biggest challenges that face the world today? I know it can take a time.
No, this would be a massive answer for anybody to address, because we have geopolitical, we have religious, we have race, we have gender. There are challenges across the board. So let me give a different type of answer. I think the challenges that we have are humans need to adapt to change is one of them, is that we're not keeping up with the pace of change, and that's going to cause disruption across the world because we're going to find laggards and accelerators. And what does that mean? It creates more conflict. The second is that the educational process that we've got in place today, it's not predicated on, well, it says it is, teaching people to think, is that the biggest skill for tomorrow will be, how do you think? And our educational system actually, in its design, doesn't give that as an incentive for teachers to implement in a way that would work. And it would take some time to go over. And the third one is that when thinking about the lack of human understanding of what is global, I think when individuals travel around the world, they say, well, I've traveled, I've been to Italy, or I've been to Cambodia, Malaysia, Singapore, or I've been to Botswana and Zambia. And they say, so I'm global, I understand. I said, no, you've traveled. There's a big difference that to work in Bangladesh, which I have for weeks on end, or to spend time in Kazakhstan, or I've lived in Hong Kong for 10 years, to work side by side with individuals, to know their homes and their personalities. I don't think that we cross-share information as human beings in the way that we need to. Now, to go back to your question, what are the challenges that we're facing? I've taken on or put on my plate 6. And they are very specific. They tie to the project we'll talk about later. I believe that unless we solve these 6, nothing else matters. And the 6 are climate change, and I can go into them if you like a little bit afterwards. Climate change, mass extinction, ecosystem collapse, displacement, physical, social, economic, religious, unrest with the same type of categorization. And the last one is explosive impact. And that's from things such as overfishing. And not to pick on a country, no means, it's just a number I have in my head at the moment. There are 800,000 fishing vessels just from China alone. So if we take these 6, what I will often say is, I love that there's 17 SDGs, amazing. Challenges, I can't remember all of them. And they actually are duplicative. But if we don't solve these 6, nothing else matters. And so if you were to actually pin me down and say, what are the biggest challenges? I would say these are the 6 that we're going to face because they impact across an interconnected world.
Now, but this clearly is a global problem. But do you think there can be a global solution, or do we have to go region by region, country by country? What can we do to address all of these?
Well, let's start with a different construct to answer that question. It comes down to the question of time. If I said to you we had 200 years, we could address it one way. If I said we had 5 years, we could address it another way. So the challenge becomes when you say, is it something that country by country can do? I can share with you that I've spoken to people in countries all over the world, and they've said, and I'm going to use one, man-made or not, that's not the topic. We have a situation, we have to deal with that. People will say our oceans are being destroyed. So I know people who are working every day trying to clean the oceans. But if you take them aside, they work for nonprofits, they've set up companies, they do videos, and you take them aside and say, how's it working for you? And they all give the exact same answer. It's not. We're not keeping up. So if in fact we're not doing it, we're relying on this construct that if everybody pitches in, it will change. We've seen through the pandemic that not everybody pitches in equally, and even people fight against the tide, even if science is right on their side. So I believe we have to have, and this is my assumption, that we have to come at this from an interconnectedness perspective in a way that's counterintuitive. And the example of the way I look at it is this. If you were to watch the movie with Harrison Ford, I'm assuming a global audience, we've all seen or know of Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark or any of these. He's a scientist who goes out, does exploration. If he sees a massive safe in front of him or a lock, and it's 2 meters thick, he's not going to sit there with a chisel and say, everybody chisel. What he will do is say, I see that there are 6 keys, and he will go that way and find the keys. He comes back, and like magic, the stones always rise into the air, but he comes back and the stones go in and they unlock it. We have to solve them simultaneously in a way we've never thought of before. And so I admire the tenacity, and I think we should continue. Yet, if you take the mega challenges that I listed, we're not solving them. There is nothing out there that indicates that we are improving. So where do you go from there?
Yeah, you're so right. And they're all challenges that we all know about, and everybody knows, a lot needs to be done, and a lot needs to be done more. But when we think about—
Can I push back on that? I don't think everybody does. Yeah. I think we make the assumption that everybody believes that these are challenges. And yet, when you have one-on-one conversations, there's a lack of knowledge. For example, I just brought up water, so I'll carry water. It's not my theme. We assume that plastics are our biggest challenge in the water because animals get caught up in it. It's not. It is not even close to. And I'm going to use the United States as an example. I have a data point on it. The United States dumps municipal waste, about 12 billion gallons of municipal waste into the ocean every day. That's not radioactive waste. That is not agricultural waste. That's not industrial waste. That's not mining waste. That's one category into the ocean. The US is 330 million. So let's take Europe as 700 and some odd million. Let's take China at 1.2 billion. Let's take 1.4 billion. And the same with India. Just those 4, assume they're all the same. That's 50 billion gallons. If you had a choice between drinking water with a little bit of plastic, which we have plastic in our water already, and we had sewage, sludge, and you had to drink one because you needed to drink, which are you going to drink? But this is what's killing our water. The plastic is terrible, but unless we stop the municipal waste going into our oceans, we're going to poison our oceans before the plastic even takes a hold.
Yeah, and people really need to, I think, as you said, educate themselves perhaps and wake up a little bit. But, making policy changes, doing things differently, this needs good leaders very much. And you've worked with so many, in terms of, your work and all of what you do. But talk to me a little bit about leadership, creativity, innovation, and in your book, Paid to Think, you talk a lot about enterprise thinking. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, enterprise thinking, obviously a book, I'm not trying to sell the book. I'll tell you the construct that came behind it. I became frustrated with what I was learning about leadership throughout my years of growing up. And I was frustrated because I didn't feel I was learning how to think and solve challenges. I was being given a tool and said, this is what you do. Part of the businesses I've owned over 20 businesses in different categories. I had this great opportunity to work with other individuals, and I would interview them about what they think are their major challenges that they're facing. And then I would go through and identify what was the core root of these challenges. And what I found, profit and nonprofit, government, military, education. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter what role, cross-level, cross-functional, cross-industry, cross-sector, cross-time, doesn't matter. We all have the exact same leadership skill sets that we need. We all need to strategize. We all need to perform. We all need to forecast, and we all need to learn, or to learn. And within there are 12 different skill sets that every leader has to know. It doesn't matter it's how much they use it each time, but every leader is similar across the globe. And very quickly, I can do this in less than 2 minutes, so we won't take up too much time. Anybody who's listening, yourself included, you ask yourself, do you do this in your job, in your role? Do you develop plans, short or long term, doesn't matter, for tomorrow or for 3 months from now or 3 years? Do you create new products and services that you can sell or use, internal or external? So they could be for your own internal team or external. Are you establishing alliances? You and I have become friends. That's an alliance that we're building. Are we leveraging technology? And we have to be careful. Technology is not computers. It is a pen. It is a lever. It is any type of technology we've created. Are you acquiring new knowledge? Constantly developing? Are you enhancing your global awareness? Look, at the person who lives next to you could have a gender, race, religion difference. It doesn't mean global. It means to know what people are about. Are you watching your competition? So far, I'm assuming you've done every one of these. Then you're performing, you're engaged in the act of leading, you're empowering other people, you are innovating everywhere, and you're selling continuously. Every leader does. And the last one is you're forecasting all the time to make it to a meeting or to do something a year from now. Those are the 12 skill sets that everybody needs to know, and we don't teach them. So what I did is, for myself, I wrote a book. I was writing it for myself, and I was testing it. And every time I came to an answer, it was in these 12. And so that's the litmus test. It's a new way of looking at what you need to do to learn and teach other people to learn. And what's amazing is, if you learn it in a job for one, it's transferable to the next job. It's amazing the interconnectedness of it. And anybody who's using it will, I can't say anybody, that's probably too large. I believe that the people who have found and discovered it have found there's a lot of answers there.
Yeah, a fascinating book, a big book, but I mean, some, incredibly valuable, exercises and stories within there too. But just when we talk about leadership, just the last year or two, looking at what happened in the pandemic, do you think now that is actually making a difference, and have people woken up a little bit perhaps in terms of how they're leading, or is there a danger we all go back to the way things were?
I don't. This pandemic, in scale of pandemics, doesn't even match the bubonic plague. It doesn't match the Spanish flu. We've had, and I'm not discounting the numbers, but let's say it's 10 million people have died. If it were equivalent to the Spanish flu, it would be 250 to 500 million people dying, whatever that number is. We haven't even touched the surface. So to answer the question is, does leadership will we fall back? I don't even think that there's another tool set for individuals to address the challenges we have. That's the challenge, is that they don't even know that what their primary roles are. So I'll give you a quick example. I have this one individual on our Project Moonhut team. He said he's so busy, he's got a huge budget, he's in the military complex. And I knew my first thing I had to do was teach this person how to change his thinking. So he read the book 3 times in 2 months. And he started to realize that his role was completely different than what he thought it was. And the last time I spoke to him, he said he was 17% over budget. And this is billions of dollars. And he was given the money from other people's budgets. He then said to me, I was given one of those other divisions under me. I was given 3 new people in my staff, but this was the biggest. He said, I feel like I'm doing less work. And he is. It's because he's focusing on what his real role is to figure out the plans, to figure out the new products and services, to empower people properly, to grow them, to do things differently. And we just, no matter where I am in the world, Cambodia, Malaysia, Singapore, Botswana, Zambia, South Africa, Colombia, it doesn't matter where it is. The construct of how we're telling or teaching individuals to be able to learn what they need to do to lead and manage is a 2-legged stool. And they need one other set of skills. And that's the cross-functional, interdisciplinary interconnectedness of how in which a leader needs to lead, no matter what size, running a roofing business to a multi-billion-dollar operation. And we just don't do enough of, there's not enough insight into that. And honestly, you make very little money on a book. Anybody who's written a book, that's not where your money is. I can give some chapters if anybody would like. I'm fine with that. The big thing is we need to change our world. And that to me is the core.
Now, you mentioned their Project Moonhat, and I was going to talk about it later, but let's talk about it now because, you know, we've only got about 10 minutes left. You're not a space person, but you've actually come up with a very exciting concept. So tell us a little bit more about your plans for, I suppose, an Earth and space-to-base ecosystem, because everyone's getting excited about space at the minute, but you have a very fascinating and different take on this. Project Moonhat, talk to me.
Okay, I was drawn into this. I am not a space person at all. My team wishes I was, but I'm not. Let me give you our directive, and then we can break that down very quickly. We're designing plans for man to live sustainably on the moon through the accelerated development of an Earth and space-based ecosystem. Then take those endeavors, the paradigm shifting thinking, and the innovations, and turn them back on Earth to improve how we live on Earth for all species. We're always about all species. You hear so much about the human species. It's all of them. Let me unbox that for you very quickly. We're designing plans for men to live on the moon. We have full plans. We diagrams, everything. We're not pounding our chest. The space industry, sorry to say, loves to pound their chest. We are not. We also don't believe space is an industry. At least I say this. Space is not an industry. It's a geography. If you were to do something on the South Pole or the North Pole or the Sahara Desert or at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, even maybe the bottom of the Marianas Trench would be more difficult than building something on the moon. So we're bringing the moon closer to us. We're not going to space. And we're creating this new ecosystem. It will be called MERTH, Moon and Earth ecosystem, MERTH, and an economic system. So that's the first part. The second is to accelerate the Earth and space-based ecosystem. Well, right now, we don't have means by which to connect on a global scale to come up with new ideas to get us into or on the moon fast enough. My timeline is 38 years. Talked about timelines earlier. I think we have 38 years before we get to a point where we're really going to have challenges making this world a place that we're going to enjoy as we did when we grew up. So then what are we going to do? We're going to take those innovations, the paradigm shifting and thinking, and turn them back on Earth. The truth is the majority of innovations that will be made for space never make it to space. They actually are used on Earth. But if you look at your life today, your life, and we don't call it this, your life is, and everybody in the audience's life is space. You wake up in the morning, your clocks, the weather reports that you get, the GPS that you have. You had a package delivered yesterday, it was tracked by GPS. If you had food yesterday, probably there was agriculture that was done in there. My glasses are scratch resistant lenses. If you've seen a firefighter run into a building, the outfit they're wearing is space tech. The thing on the back is space tech. You get on a plane and those boots on the wings, they have space tech in them. Our mouse has some space tech in it. Our lives, this call is going through space, but we don't think that way. So we have to change our paradigm shifting. We have to think about what we're doing. But those innovations, this accelerated innovation, I believe, will address those 6 mega challenges because we have to have water purification in space. That's one of the biggest things that have been invented that we use on Earth. We have exercise equipment used in space. Cordless power tools were somewhat connected to space. Not solely, I mean, there are many other purposes, but imagine if we can accelerate innovation in a way for a harsh environment. Those innovations are exactly what Earth needs. So Earth needs space.
And so you think it's very feasible to use that space-based economy that could actually make a big difference to problems facing humanity at the moment, as you laid out?
It will, and I call it reference from a guy by the name of Dennis Wingo. We were having a conversation. I call it the age of infinite. I think there's a dialogue now. We're entering the 4th industrial revolution. IoT, connected devices, that is just data moving faster. That's all it is. It's the data. We're still in the information age. But what would be the next one? That would be that we have infinite possibilities and infinite resources. In the minds of individuals today, we have this abundance philosophy that is being used. And I don't see that because in order to have abundance, you have to have scarcity. And our world, we put 80 million people onto this planet every year. And what does the industrial nations want to do? turn them into capitalists and buyers and part of the ecosystem. So we add 80 million new individuals to buying and living a life of consumerism. I think we can enter into the age of infinite. And by transition in the next probably 30 to 40 years, we could see that there's infinite supply of platinum, there's infinite supply of sun, there's infinite supply of energy. And when you think in terms of infinite, the world changes. You don't need to take from somebody else, you create together collectively. And unless we make these changes, the United Nations came out with a report. I think the number is I used to say we use 12 to 24 species every day on this planet. The number is 200 to 250 species die every single day on this planet. The fire last year in Australia, today, this past few weeks, they put 500 species on the endangered species list. There's so many ways we can solve these challenges, but we're not at a point where we could be reductive. And a lot of what you're hearing is reductionism. Etna, you can't drink this. Etna, you can't have this. Etna, you can't do this. Not going to happen. Try to tell a child that they can't have. So we have to come at it an approach that's very different. Like I said, instead of solving this lock, we solve for space. And by doing that, those innovations that we need, and I'll give you one very quickly, will solve for Earth. So there's a gentleman in I've done a podcast with him on the Age of Infinite podcast with Gadahar Reddy. He's out of India. His parents put all the money into a business to do water filtration on Mars. And he solved it. He can do water filtration on Mars, but he has one major challenge. Can you guess?
No, miles away.
We're not on Mars. We're not on Mars.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's now being used for supercoating for planes. It's used for biomarkers in medicine. It's being used for about 6 different other things that would improve how we live on Earth for all species. So the challenge is to accelerate this innovative thinking. Not everybody's going to be involved, and we're okay if you're not involved. We're continuing to do it. We don't pound our chest. We work in the background, and we're building it.
So if other people do want to get involved, because, it sounds there is so much within this. And, we look at the work, I think, in India and China already. We'll talk about that in a minute. But how can people get involved?
It's what I always suggest to individuals is there's not a lot up there, but if you go to projectmoonhut.org, in the top right-hand corner, there's a series of videos. I ask people to watch them. Watch them just so you have a construct, so I don't have to go over it each time with everybody. Video 1 and 3 are the 2 major that I suggest, and then reach out to us. We return all messages, all calls, and we're looking for individuals. KPMG, Deloitte, and PricewaterhouseCoopers just gave us teams to help us work on this. We had 2 patent firms who are now helping us to work on this. We have individuals around the world, from London to Germany to you name it, helping us to construct this in the background. So we were looking for teams, we're looking for capital, we're going to be raising money. We're going to be doing all the things that you would to build what we expect to be a $1.2 trillion new enterprise that will go across Earth, and multiples from immersive to platforms. All of this with the expectation and the hope is that we can look in the rearview mirror and say, who were we? I mean, really, we're better than that.
Now, when we look at all of the interest in space at the moment, the UAE, India, China, Middle East, they've made great strides in terms of space development in the past year. How can other Asian nations particularly maybe pursue a space-based economy? And also, how can this help drive sustainable development? It's not just about putting rockets up. It's a much wider picture than that.
And that's where the challenge is using this word space. First of all, it's just leveraging the tools that are available. So if you want to say enter into the space industry, there's 162 space launch rocket companies today in development. Most of them will fail. There's not enough business to go around. It's just the business. So the challenge is, do you get into the rocket business? But what if you're an accountant who works on the moon? Are you a space accountant? No, you're an accountant. If you're in the middle of space and you're working on something, you're an accountant. It's to look at this place called Mirth, and instead I love that what Elon is doing, and I'm not trying, there's nothing bad about what he's doing, but the timeline doesn't solve the challenges on Earth. Besides, his objective is 1 million people on Mars in 40 to 100 years. There will be 10 billion people on this planet in 40 years. So we have to fix the 10 billion. I'm not going to be on it. I have children. They're going to be here. They'll have children, and they might even have children. So we could have 4 generations. They're not going to be on Mars. But the moon is 3 days away at current day technology. And we're only going to have, in terms of our plan, 1,644 people on the moon in this period of time. That's it. But the thing is, those technologies will change how we live on Earth. So I don't say you have to enter the space industry. Say you have to start leveraging the tools of satellites and research that's being done. So if you want to connect with us, ours is to bring a global initiative together. I know I look American. I've lived in Europe. I've lived 10 years in Hong Kong. I love the world. And we are approaching this very much as a global experience or a global project to improve how we live on Earth for all species. And we fight tooth and nail to make sure that we are not representing one country over another. We're really trying to make a difference, because if we don't, the consequences seem pretty clear. It's not that we're going to disappear. I don't think that. I do think that we could have this age of infinite if we play our cards right, and we can live an amazing life.
Now we got 1 minute left. It's been a fascinating conversation, but throw me out a few perhaps words of warning, words of wisdom. You know, you must be optimistic about what we can do. I know you are.
Well, I'm optimistic. I often go negative to solve positive, but you can't, here's one that you can live by every day. You can't fix yesterday. You can only create tomorrow. And so there was this one cartoon when I grew up, happens to be tied to Christmas, but there was one cartoon that I used to watch, and I remember it to this day, and I use it to this day. There's a song in it, it says, "Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking across the floor. Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out the door." Well, every day, I get up, good, bad, feeling terrible, feeling good, and I make sure that I'm fixing tomorrow. I'm working on tomorrow. And every day I don't go to bed before something puts one step in front of the other. I've never sung on stage since I've been a little boy. So it's interesting to have actually done that.
Well, we're delighted. It's just the inspiration we need at the moment. And it's that simple, as you say. It is about one step at a time. And sometimes things can look a bit overwhelming to people, particularly when they look at some of the issues in the world. But actually, it's about taking that action and doing something about it. David Goldsmith, it's been fascinating to talk with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And to all of our ABLF audience, stay with us. We'll be right back as we just wrap up this entire conclave. It's been great to have everybody on board, but stay with us. We'll be right back.